In today's SOD TV's Warcraft Logs Up, we're focusing on the current leaders. Nightsong, who is part of the Summers Guild on the Living Flame EU server, has once again claimed the 1 spot. This marks the 33rd time Nightsong, a Shaman spec tank, has held this prestigious position, demonstrating an impressive level of skill and consistency. In other news, we have some strong contenders not far behind. Tree Ranger, a hunter melee player, has also held the top spot 33 times, showing a neck-to-neck competition with Nightsong. Sapato, a warrior fury player, and NMX, a druid guardian player, have both dominated the leaderboard 24 times. Rounding out the top 5 is BGTD, a druid feral player, with 21 times at the top. In the balanced druid category, Honeycow from the Guild Link Logs holds the top spot for the 7th consecutive day with an impressive DPS of 1,142.9. Following closely behind is Innate from the Guild Humbertism, maintaining a steady DPS of 1,110.0. Hootie Hoot rounds out the top 3, delivering a DPS of 1,099.1. The remaining top 10 players, who continue to challenge the leaderboard, are Feewall, Sinti, Blazarus, Crushy, Uitism, Hotmiss, and Centripetal. In the Feral Druid category, Parsepolis takes the lead today with a DPS of 1,554.6, a significant increase from yesterday's 1,498.7. African Tiger follows closely in second place, boasting a DPS of 1,520.9. BGT, who held the top position for over a week, now sits in third place with a consistent DPS of 1,517.3. The remaining top 10 Feral Druids for today, showcasing exceptional skill and prowess, are Lawsuit, Jini, Qiongjing Qi, Endef, Efshi, Ambatukum, and Laboboba. In the Guardian Druid category, NMX from the Guild Chinese Textile Machine continues to dominate with an impressive DPS of 1,006.4, holding the top spot for over a week. Following closely, Cadet D from the Guild B Tribe has climbed to the second position today with a DPS of 908.0, while Raikiri from the Guild Pepident maintains the third spot with a DPS of 886.1. The remaining top 10 players for today are Pump Maride, Minetsis, PumpPX, Sudoaptagit, Kiljerpuli, Judah Desihao, and XTK. In the Melee Hunter category, Tree Ranger from the Guild Cartel holds the top spot for the 5th consecutive day with a DPS of 1,556.9. Manieros, a member of the Chinese Textile Machine Guild, trails closely behind with a DPS of 1,535.1. The third spot is occupied by Olgi from the Guild Dendansky Methode, boasting a DPS of 1,514.9. The remaining top 10 players are Bald Morocho, Johnny Sins, Rezorth, Yanglichi, Chi, Zatara, and Anex. In the Ranged Hunter category, Makes from the Guild Link Logs has held the top spot for over a week, consistently delivering a DPS of 1,477.5. Close on their heels is Krusty Mill from the Guild ADHD with a DPS of 1,455.1, and in third place, we have Isoled Out from the Guild Foot Long Party Dog Sod, who's been maintaining a DPS of 1,432.2. The competition remains fierce among the remaining top 10 players, including Multigummies, Florberries, Disio, Cytex, Orlandodomer, Fragmaster, and QT. In the Arcane Mage category of World of Warcraft Classic, Cao Yi Ci Fei Shi holds the top spot for the 5th consecutive day with a DPS of 780.6. Following closely behind, Musakas from the Guild and Not Sure maintains the second position with a DPS of 726.1. Burnett from the Guild New Game Plus rounds out the top 3 with a DPS of 724.6. The remaining top 10 players for today, in no particular order, are Dilpu Quan Quan Shui, Moonfox, Digidu, Arconemit, Magical Paul, and Bloxo. In the Fire Mage category, TDMZ continues to hold the top spot for the 6th consecutive day, maintaining a DPS of 1,198.7. Close on their heels is Chef with a DPS of 1,196.2, and Delano, who rounds out the top 3 with a DPS of 1,195.3. The remaining top 10 Fire Mages for today are Arcana Terror, Spy Mage, Kiagigiayi, Rainy, Zipiam, Mellowish, and Freak Prince. In the Frost Mage category, Silvership continues to dominate with a DPS of 1,108.1, maintaining the top spot for over a week now, Following closely, we have Obi, delivering a DPS of 1061.9, and Watchtome, holding steady with a DPS of 1039.4. These three players have consistently shown remarkable performance, demonstrating their prowess in the game. The remaining top 10 players, who are also worth mentioning for their exceptional skills, include Juicy Juicy Wixard, Shangmingyu Ni Zin Mei, Just Like Fire, Dejopa, KFC, and Clankum. In the Protection Paladin category, Boysothic from the guild Who Asked continues to lead the pack with a DPS of 1302.1, holding this top position for the past 3 days. Coming in close second is Fought from the guild Chuan Cheng, with a DPS of 1299.2. Rounding out the top 3 is He Are May I See, also from the guild Chuan Cheng, with a DPS of 1291.7. Not to be forgotten, the remaining top 10 players for today are Cruz Essity, One Punch, Fakiaz, Duz, Serpali Farvold, and Kazurk T. In the Retribution Paladin category, the top 3 players have held their positions firmly. For over a week, Ji Jiju has maintained the top spot with a DPS of 1430.7, followed closely by Kiwi Yu with a DPS of 1429.4. Pettery rounds out the top 3 with a DPS of 1415.0. These players have shown exceptional skill and consistency in their gameplay. The remaining top 10 players who continue to challenge the top 3 include Pal Wang, Ryux, Elfchapo, Moran, Babitoxic, Miley Cyrus, and Fadan. In the Shadow Priest category, Shen Yuanji continues to hold the top spot with a DPS of 1029.3, a position they've maintained for over a week now. Following closely, we have Zhonggu Gulaju with a DPS of 983.9, and Shengdu Di Liang Shengsen rounding out the top 3 with a DPS of 977.9. The remaining top 10 players, who are also worth mentioning for their impressive performances, are Waga, Theradren, Hejielp, Flayed, Aplexapriest, Dog, and Tachankin. In the DPS Rogue category, Ajanin from the Guild Cartel holds the top spot with a DPS of 1565.0, maintaining this position for over a week now. Following closely, Weedbooferx from the Guild Busin delivers a DPS of 1556.4, and Mighty from the Guild Summers ranks 3rd with a DPS of 1553.2. The remaining top 10 players, showcasing exceptional skill and strategy, are Karina, Enwich, Narange, Sylvie, Jushui Dai, Iwanel, and Body Snatcher. In the Tank Rogue category, Suanfu Tao Tao from the Guild Suan Tao has been holding the top spot for the past week with a consistent DPS of 1118.0. Following closely behind is Wolf from the Guild Lore, maintaining a DPS of 1098.6. The third spot is claimed by Nerf Assassin from the Guild Nerf Shadow Club with a DPS of 1096.4. The remaining top 10 players, who are also showcasing impressive stats, include Dean P, Nova, Zombie, Bopo Tank, Sketcher, Ochenta, and Heis. In the Elemental Shaman category, Releaks from the Guild Ego continues to dominate the leaderboard with a DPS of 1303.6, maintaining the top spot for over a week now. Close behind, Roxaron holds the second position with a DPS of 1273.6. Bread Gloves from the Guild Male Models rounds out the top 3, boasting a DPS of 1235.8. The competition remains fierce with the rest of the top 10, Paifu Wu Lei Lai, Nerfshaman Jal, Mortytide, Hexmother, Bruce Wayne, and Dilly, all vying for their chance at the top. In the Enhancement Shaman category, Boziter from the Guild Summers maintains the top position with a DPS of 1726.6, holding this spot for over a week now. Following closely, Remark from the Riptide Guild has surged into second place today with a DPS of 1667.0, replacing Easy, who now holds the third position with a DPS of 1657.9. The remaining top 10 players for today, known for their impressive gameplay, are BGTS, NA, Brigand, Mahattuo, Tiatium, Fakeban, and Schnaps. In the Tank Shaman category, Nightsong from the Guild Summers has held the top spot for over a week, consistently delivering a DPS of 1147.5. Close behind, Rolpe from the Guild Consortium maintains second place with a DPS of 1131.0. Rounding out the top 3 is Vistalo from the Guild Conspiracy, with a DPS of 1126.9. The remainder of the top 10, showcasing a variety of skill and strategy, includes Iwo Run Sulsa, Dan Dan Qiu, DR Sippy Cup, Repo, Luuf, and Bjorgen. In the DPS Warlock category, Firamatic continues to reign supreme, holding the top spot with a DPS of 1,259.1 for over a week now. Following closely behind is Strawberry, hailing from the Chocolate Milk Guild, with a DPS of 1,255.0. Rounding out the top 3 is Matra from the Lethal Guild, boasting a DPS of 1,225.5. The remaining players in the top 10 who continue to challenge the leaders are Xiaojin Xiaishang Yuhin, Tako Kiz, Jegyo Riang, Aklis, Amayeto, and Open Coil. In the Tank Warlock category, Open Coil continues to hold the top spot for the 10th consecutive day with a DPS of 1,177.4. Following closely, Kelsis maintains the second position with a DPS of 1,060.8, and Enigm's X rounds out the top 3 with a DPS of 1,045.0. The competition remains fierce among the remaining top 10 players: Lobster, Gian Renamdo, Dinosaur, Gravwalker, Tiktoxic, Gigapramax, and Hathosbad. In the Fury Warrior category, Sapato from the Guild Ego continues to hold the top spot for the 7th consecutive day with a DPS of 1,801.5. In second place, we have Atosmos from the Guild Chinese Textile Machine, delivering a DPS of 1,773.7. Rounding out the top 3 is AK from the Guild Chuan Chang, with a DPS of 1,747.4. The remaining top 10 players for today are MFX, Duki, Amadeina, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ataz, Joho, and Mogpio. In the Protection Warrior category, the top 3 players have remained consistent in their placements. Dominating the leaderboard for over a week, Duo Luo Saiju has held the number 1 spot with a DPS of 1,620.9. Following closely behind is Bodil, maintaining a solid second place with a DPS of 1,567.5. Rounding out the top 3 is Agony, whose DPS of 1,557.3 secures his position. Let's not forget the remaining top 10 players who continue to challenge the leaderboard: Sufferx, Odiez, Butang, Siegeheart, Threat, Kabir, and Jeta.